On the evening of September 17th, 2023, a family of 4 was supposed to be home, dinner done, kids in bed, Sunday winding down the way Sundays do in quiet Illinois neighborhoods. Instead, what police found inside that house on Concord Avenue would stop an entire community cold and set in motion one of the most psychologically disturbing murder investigations the state had ever seen. A plot so twisted, so elaborately constructed, that it took investigators a full year after the killer was already dead to finally understand what had actually happened. And when they did, the answer wasn't what anyone expected. It started with 2 phone calls, both made by women, both made out of love, both made because the silence on the other end had gone on just a little too long. The first came from Brianna, the sister of 31-year-old Zoraida Bartolo. She and her husband Alberto Rolon had been unreachable all day. Alberto had missed his early shift at work, and that alone was enough to raise alarm. Alberto never missed work. The second call came from Zoraida's mother.
I'm calling for my daughter, Zoraida Bartolome. She lives Concord Avenue, Romeoville, Illinois, and we haven't heard from her or her husband or her children during the whole day. No answering the phone. If somebody can go by the house and check them, because the husband, they called from his work that he didn't show up to work. And he never, he's always at work.
Okay, give me 1 second. Did you last hear from your daughter?
All day today, I haven't heard from her.
But when did you last talk to her? Yeah,
last night.
Last night? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to send officers over to check on her, and somebody will give you a call back, okay?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you.
No problem. That's what we're here for.
She had no idea what officers were about to walk into. Romeoville police arrived at the 500 block of Concord Avenue at 8:43 p.m. to perform a welfare check, a routine call, the kind officers handled dozens of times a week. Nothing about the drive over suggested anything other than a standard Sunday night check-in, but through the front picture window, something was immediately wrong.
This one is open. No, it's not.
Oh God.
I need more units here. Hold this.
Furniture doesn't knock itself over. Officers moved to the back of the property. The rear door was open. Then silence on the radio. And then what that officer saw in the doorway would never leave him. 2 dogs, dead, furniture overturned, the unmistakable aftermath of violence soaked into every corner of that house. The building was cleared room by room, officers moving through darkness, calling out, getting nothing back. And then, in a hallway, 38-year-old Alberto Rolon, shot, dead. A bedroom door had been kicked in. Inside, Zoraida was found on the floor, her hands raised over her face, the last desperate instinct of a mother trying to shield herself from what was coming. And in the bed where she had likely tucked them in herself just hours before, 10-year-old Adriel, 7-year-old Diego. All 4 members of the Rolon family were gone. Nearly 24 shell casings from a 9mm pistol littered the floors. The murder weapon was nowhere in the house. The neighborhood couldn't process it.
They were a quiet couple. They kept to themselves. They maintained their yard. I never saw the kids out front. I only heard them in the back.
Like a close-knit family as far as I could tell, and they just stayed to themselves, had outings in their backyard a lot of times with just family, and both of them worked. She worked days and he worked nights.
This was not a family with enemies, not a family with a criminal history, not a family drowning in debt or caught up in anything dangerous. They had only moved into this house, their house, the one they had saved and worked and sacrificed for, in April of that year, just 5 months before someone walked through their back door and took everything. Investigators reconstructed the sequence of events from the crime scene. Alberto, who worked nights, was likely awake when the intruder entered. Zoraida and the boys were in the bedroom. Possibly one of the children had been having trouble sleeping and had been tucked into his mother's bed. Alberto heard something at the back door. He moved toward the noise. He was shot in the hallway. Injured and desperate, he ran toward his family. The shooter followed and fired 5 more times before Alberto could reach the bedroom door. He never made it through. The staging was deliberate. Furniture overturned, a half-finished attempt to spray paint profanity on the living room wall, abandoned when the paint can failed after just the letter F. Someone had tried to make this look random, like kids, like a senseless burglary gone wrong. It wasn't random. This family had been chosen. The question was, by who and why? Before we go any further, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now, because what you're about to hear is the reason this case kept me up at night. I've covered a lot of cases on this channel. I have never, not once, covered a motive like the one behind these murders. Stay with me. The answer began to take shape at Zoraida's workplace. Investigators speaking with coworkers at Avanti Engineering, a machined parts manufacturer where Zoraida worked quality control, developed a lead almost immediately. Zoraida had confided in a colleague in the weeks before her death. She had been receiving threatening text messages since June, anonymous, escalating in nature, warning her away from a romantic entanglement with another coworker. His name was Nate Huie Jr. Everyone called him Nate. Zoraida and Nate had been involved for about 4 months. Alberto reportedly knew about previous instances of infidelity in their marriage. The couple had chosen to stay together for the sake of their boys. But the messages Zoraida was receiving were not just angry. They were unnervingly specific. Nate is about to be the center of a murder investigation. You are putting your children in danger by seeing him. And then, 1 week before the murders, Alberto received a message too, from an unknown number. "This will be the last I say this, Alberto. This stupid girl will be the reason you have no children." Alberto Rolon received that message exactly 7 days before his sons were killed in their bed. Detectives found Nate at work and sat across from a man who spoke about Zoraida with something that looked very much like genuine grief, and something else that investigators couldn't quite name yet.
So, what can you tell us?
I know about the relationship that stemmed from here.
Mm-hmm. So when you guys, are you married?
Yeah, but not paper. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but yes, but we're not didn't go to court there, officially.
So church married, but not paper married?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nate stumbled through his sentences, called her a connection unlike anything he'd experienced, struggled to explain what she meant to him without saying the word that was clearly sitting right behind his teeth. Zoraida's sister, Brianna, would later tell investigators that Zoraida had compared their relationship to Romeo and Juliet. At Nate's workstation, police found a note in Zoraida's handwriting. "You mean so much to me. I don't think you understand how much I actually love you." Nate seemed devastated, but investigators were not convinced, because the more they looked beneath the surface of Nate Huie, the more troubling the picture became. His registered business, Black Bear Security LLC, advertised personal protection, business security, and gun repairs. His social media showed him posing confidently with rifles and tactical gear. And here was the problem. Nate was legally barred from owning firearms. A battery charge in 2016 had removed that right permanently. He had ignored it entirely. On September 14th, 3 days before the murders, Nate left work early and didn't return until after the killings had already occurred. Coworkers reported tension between him and Zoraida before he walked out. He seemed agitated, upset about something he wouldn't name. Then came the detail that made investigators stop cold. One of Nate's fiance's daughters described him to law enforcement as a paranoid type, not occasionally, increasingly, for weeks. He spoke constantly of people who were after him, people watching him. He had placed black electrical tape over the doorbell camera, over the red standby light on the television. He was convinced he was under surveillance. Police tracked him to a Walmart parking lot where they watched as he handed a former security colleague a large black duffel bag. When that bag was recovered weeks later, it contained rifles, body armor plates, Glock magazines, a knife, and black zip ties. No 9mm pistol, the exact caliber used to kill the Rolon family. He had already gotten rid of the gun, but he hadn't gotten rid of the paranoia. And that paranoia, investigators were beginning to sense, was the center of everything. That same evening, detectives arrived at Nate's home to speak with his fiancée, a 50-year-old mother of 5 named Hermalinda Palomo. She answered the door composed, measured, almost too calm for a woman whose partner had just been questioned in connection with a quadruple homicide. She agreed to sit with detectives in their cruiser. She explained she had just been on the phone with Nate when officers approached him. She overheard someone mention an affair. She said it was the first she had heard of it. She told detectives that Nate would never hurt anyone, that he was the kind of man who de-escalated situations rather than created them. She told them he had been home all weekend, Friday, Saturday, all of it. Her daughters could confirm it. She held eye contact. Her voice didn't waver. She was, by every visible measure, a woman with nothing to hide. She was lying about everything. The detectives didn't have the proof yet, and so the investigation moved forward, with Hermalinda positioned as a grieving, deceived fiancé rather than what she actually was. Nate, meanwhile, was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. He agreed to hand over his phone, agreed to a DNA swab, agreed to let detectives search his SUV. Then he delayed, deflected, showed up late, gave explanations that created more questions than they answered. When asked about the threatening messages sent to Zoraida and Alberto, he said he knew nothing about those. But then he admitted he had been receiving threatening messages of his own for a long time from people coming after him. Bulgarians, he said, a cartel, Mexican and Bulgarian, high-tech capabilities. They were watching him. He had become an unwilling member of their operation, and somewhere in his life, close to him, someone he trusted, there was a mole, a person who was planning to move against him. The name of that mole, he had been told, would be revealed when the time was right. Detectives heard this and cataloged it as paranoid rambling, a man building himself an exit from suspicion by constructing a fantastical story about criminal organizations and planted informants. They were wrong about that, but they wouldn't know it for another year. On September 19th, 2 days after the murders, Nate met his mother at a Target while Hermalinda waited in the car outside. And he confessed to killing the family. When she asked him why, he told her because people were after him. He believed the children were better off dead than alive without parents. What his mother did with that confession in the immediate hours that followed remains unclear. That same afternoon, as Hermalinda walked toward her black Chevy Malibu outside their home, an officer was already waiting. A license plate reader had captured her vehicle in Romeoville at 3:48 a.m. on the night of the murders. She had told detectives she never left the house. Her license plate had already told the truth. Ring camera footage and additional sources confirmed it. The vehicle used in the crime was tracked traveling from their home in Streamwood directly to Zoraida's Romeoville address at the precise window when the murders were believed to have occurred. Nate was seen exiting and re-entering the vehicle from the passenger side. Hermalinda was the driver. That evening, the two of them fled the state. She told family members she was frightened of Nate and had no choice but to go with him. She sent messages to her children before leaving. "I love you. Take care of my grandbabies." Her family, genuinely terrified for her safety, reported her as a missing and endangered person the following day. Her image was distributed nationally. Law enforcement positioned Nate as the murder suspect and Hermalinda as his potential victim. For a moment, it looked like that was the story. It wasn't. A license plate reader in Catoosa, Oklahoma, more than 600 miles from their Illinois home, flagged Nate's GMC SUV on September 20th. Officers tracked the couple to a Walmart stop. Surveillance footage showed them walking through the parking lot together, holding hands, smiling as they exited the store. They had purchased hair dye, cosmetics, and a prepaid cell phone. This was not a kidnapper and his hostage. These were two people running together. As they returned to the GMC, a Catoosa officer activated her lights. Nate drove off. The chase moved onto Interstate 44. The GMC crashed into another vehicle and then into a solid concrete median. The driver's side door was pinned completely shut. The car caught fire. Officers approaching the vehicle heard gunshots from inside. Hermalinda was pulled from the passenger side. She had been shot. She was rushed to hospital but did not survive her injuries. Inside the burning car, Nate Huie was already dead. He had turned the gun on himself. The chase was over, but the most important question, the one that explained everything, remained completely unanswered. Why had any of this happened? That answer would take an entire year to surface, and when it did, it recontextualized every single moment of this case. As investigators spent the following 12 months sorting through Nate's correspondence and Hermalinda's phone data, the real architecture of the murder plot finally came into focus. And it was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Since December 2021, nearly 2 full years before the murders, Hermalinda Palomo had been building a fiction, methodically, patiently, with a level of psychological precision that investigators struggled to fully comprehend, even as the evidence sat right in front of them. Using fake phone numbers and multiple online personas, she had convinced her own fiancé that he had been recruited into a powerful Mexican and Bulgarian drug cartel. She created characters with detailed backstories, bosses, hitmen, hackers. She developed relationships between them, gave them histories, personalities, internal conflicts, until they felt like a real organization Nate had been pulled into against his will. She researched the dark web specifically to make her hacker persona credible. She regularly translated phrases into Bulgarian to simulate authenticity. She installed a secret location tracking app on her phone to monitor Nate's real-time movements, and then used that data to tell him, through her fake cartel personas, that he was being followed. She was confirming his surveillance fears with information only she could have accessed. The initial goal had been control. She wanted him faithful, so the cartel warned him to stay away from other women. When Zoraida's name appeared on Nate's phone, Hermalinda intercepted those messages, fed them into her fiction, and escalated the operation. 1 week before the murders, she sent threatening texts to both Zoraida and Alberto herself, under anonymous numbers, trying to scare Zoraida into walking away. Zoraida didn't walk away. So on September 14, 2023, Hermalinda opened one of her cartel personas and sent her fiancé a message. Zoraida was the mole. She had been placed inside his life specifically to destroy him. She was planning to move against him first. He needed to act before she did. Make it look like a burglary committed by kids. Many murders go unsolved. Nate believed every word. He left work early and began planning in real time. He researched Zoraida's neighborhood, identified cameras, mapped entry and exit routes, figured out how to move through the house without leaving DNA behind. He even messaged one of his cartel contacts to work through the details of the plan, not realizing for a single second that he was typing directly to his fiancée. She drove him there. She sat outside while he went in. She drove him home. He planned the murder with the person who ordered it, and he had absolutely no idea. If that just stopped you cold, if this is the kind of case that reminds you why true crime matters, subscribe right now and hit the bell, because every case on this channel is told with this same level of detail and depth, and there are more of them waiting for you. Don't miss the next one.
Police came to believe that Nate Huie went to his death inside a burning car on an Oklahoma highway without ever knowing the cartel was a fiction, without ever knowing that every threat, every warning, every instruction, every persona he had trusted for 2 years had been constructed by the woman sitting next to him. He killed 4 people because the person he trusted most in the world spent 2 years building a psychological trap and then placed an innocent family directly in his path. Zoraida Bartolo, Alberto Rolon, Adriel, age 10, Diego, age 7. A family that bought their first home in April and were dead by September. A family that kept to themselves, worked hard, and lived entirely for their children. A family that had absolutely nothing to do with any cartel, Bulgarian, Mexican, or otherwise. They were not targets. They were not threats. They were not part of any operation. They were collateral damage in one woman's jealousy, and they paid for it with everything. There is no clean ending to a story like this, no verdict that gives back what was taken, no sentence that fully explains how a woman spent 2 years constructing a psychological labyrinth sophisticated enough to turn her own partner into a weapon, and then placed that weapon at a mother and her 2 young sons. What remains are the questions that have no answers. What Adriel and Diego were dreaming about that night, whether Alberto heard anything before the back door came open, whether Zoraida had any idea in those final seconds with her hands raised over her face that none of it had anything to do with her. This case is not just a murder investigation. It is a study in what jealousy becomes when it is given 2 years, a smartphone, and absolutely no conscience. Their names were Zoraida, Alberto, Adriel, Diego. Remember them. If their story moved you, if you believe they deserved better than what happened to them in that house on Concord Avenue, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Every view, every share, every comment is a refusal to let them disappear into statistics. Thank you for watching.